parents. And tonight's talk is specifically for the youth, and the topic was atheism, how a Muslim can successfully counter this narrative and the loss of pride in our Islamic identity. So inshallah, I will, Dr. Amjad, mashallah, is the world-renowned scholar, but more important right now in Canada, he's mashallah very well known, and he's doing a lot of great work, especially in Ontario, and he visited Edmonton, he visits other communities. So I want to thank him. I benefited personally a lot from him, especially in the summertime when I would go. So inshallah, without any further ado, I will give the mic to Dr. Amjad. Jazakallah khair, Shaykh.
Jazakumullahu khairan. Thank you very much, Brother Maqsood. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from you your deeds. And respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most compassionate, the most merciful, all praise and thanks are due to him, and peace and blessings be upon his beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He who is guided by the will of Allah, no one can misguide him, and he who is misguided, no one can guide him except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I do bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. Jazakumullah khair in the Islamic Center of Fort McMurray. May Allah accept from you your deeds. Thank you very much for having me, and I will start. Now, atheism, how a Muslim can successfully counter this narrative and the loss of pride in our Islamic identity. Now, first of all, brothers and sisters, this topic is a huge topic. Normally, I give a training course how to deal with the concept of atheism. This takes from me between 24 to 63 hours normally if I want really to convey a good message. Now we have 1 hour or less. So you can imagine when you want to squeeze or to compress something, you need 30 hours in 50 minutes. So academically, I will do my best. This session will be more or less an awareness session. It's not a pure academic practical thing, but it is rather an awareness session. So basically, I will be dealing with this or these 4 main sections. Section number 1, I will be giving some definitions to know with what we are dealing. Number 1. Number 2, I will give you some kind of historical context for the phenomena of atheism to understand how this phenomenon came to exist. Number 3, I will talk about main reasons of atheism, why some Muslims, youth, really delve into area of atheism according to two researchers from that I used to follow and to read their academic production. Number 4, I will be dealing just with 1 or 2 doubts or problems. Atheism, the world of atheism, they highlight most to give you an idea about how to deal with such questions or doubts that happens within atheism. So 4 main sections: definitions, history, reasons, 1 or 2 of the most well-known doubts, how to deal with them. Because how to deal with doubts in itself, it takes hours, and it's a very intensive, as I said. So section number 1, definitions. When we talk about atheism, we need to understand, to have an idea about maybe 4 or 5 or 6 definitions. Let me pay your attention. I'm an academic university professor, and I can't help but to put it in a very academic way, which will help as long as most of the audience, supposedly, you are youth. So, there is a proverb in English says, no definition, no prohibition. No definition, no prohibition. What does it mean? If we do not define what we are talking about, no one can declare that this is right or wrong, or this is prohibited or legal or illegal. It's a philosophical right, really, which means if I do not define what I mean by what I'm talking about, I might be talking about something, your understanding could be in somewhere else. So Therefore, in Islam, really, we do pay high attention to the concept of definition, to define. So, try to focus with me. I will try in a few minutes now to give you the definition of the following terminology. We have the term atheism. We have the term monotheism. We have the term polytheism. And we have the term Maltheism. And we have the term mesotheism. Okay. Now, the word theo means God in Latin. Atheism means the denial, the rejection of the existence of God. The one who says, I deny, I reject, I don't accept, I don't believe in the existence of God, this is called atheism. Denial, rejection of the existence of God. This is atheism. And the one who denies, who rejects, who refuses the whole issue, the whole area of God and the world of the unseen, Alamul Ghaib, incomplete, which contains the angels, the past, everything has to do with Ghaib, such as on top of it, God Almighty, the paradise, the Jannah, the hellfire, the accountability, the day of judgment, living after death, resurrection, all of these concepts, on top of them, God Almighty Himself, when someone rejects this package in full, this is called atheism. Now, we have the concept of monotheism. Monotheism means to believe in the existence of one God, the only God who created everything. So that's why we say, for example, Islam is a monotheistic religion. To believe not just in the existence, to believe that it is the only God. It's not just the existence, but it is the only God. Does not share this divinity or the existence of any other God. We have the concept of polytheism. Polytheism. Polytheism means to believe in more than one God, which is تعدد الآلهة. Okay? More than one God, which is applicable in the mentality of the old Greek way of thinking and the Romans. They believe in different gods. When you go and read about the history of the faith in Roman Empire, in the Greek civilization, they used to believe in multiple gods. The god of the fire, the god, and they have the big boss of gods, which is Zeus. They have the god of sport, which is Nike. They have the god of beauty, Venus. They have the god of such and such, the god of the oven, the god of the agriculture, the god of such and such, you know, just name it, tens of gods. This is called polytheism. They believe in a concept of a god, but just not one, but multiple. Now we have the concept which is very new, little people they know, Maltheism and Xenotheism. Maltheism, it is the belief that this God which does exist is evil and bad. If someone believes in the existence of an evil God, okay, or a bad God, this is called, his attitude is called Maltheism. Now, and we have Xenotheism. Xenotheism means when someone holds an attitude of hatred for this God, regardless who is this God. Even if this God does exist, but however, this person holds a hatred, anger against this God, this is called Xenotheism. Why do I say that? Because you need to keep this in mind when we will come to the main reasons of atheism within Muslim context, Arabic context. When we speak about atheism, we will discover that many of those who are claimed to be atheists, they are part of Maltheism and Xenotheism. They are not atheists. They are Maltheists and Xenotheists. This is what we will discover later. So from now, and it's good to know, a term which is not part of what I'm talking about, but it's close and sometimes might be confusing for some people, which is the terminology of agnosticism. When you say agnostic, now agnosticism could be applicable in two main categories. The agnostic is the one who is in the middle of nowhere with regard, is there a God or not? He has not decided yet to reject the possibility and to deny. However, he did not reject the opposite side as well. He is not an atheist. He does not declare that I don't believe in the existence of God, but he says in the same way, I don't say that there is a God. So he declares that I'm in the middle. I can't say there is, and I can't say there is not. So he is called an agnostic. This is one category of agnosticism. So when someone says, excuse me, are you a believer? Are you a Christian, a Jew, a Muslim, or an atheist? He said, no, I'm an agnostic. Okay, this is one possible explanation for the agnostics. Okay? Now, another definition, which is another part of agnosticism, the agnostic is the one who has no problem from the very beginning with the existence of God. This is not his problem. His problem is he does not know which religion of this God is true. He is in the middle of nowhere. He can't decide now which religion, which system is the truth. Is it Judaism? Is it Christianity? Is it Islam? Is it Buddhism? Is it Hinduism? So he's searching, looking. He could not reach to any kind of possibility that it could be Christianity versus Islam or Islam versus Judaism. He did not decide. He is, hesitant. So he calls him or herself an agnostic. So we have atheism, agnosticism, polytheism, and Maltheism and Xenotheism and Polytheism. So please keep, I know most of you, maybe this is new for them, but it's good, I repeat, it's good to know what is what and who is who, or otherwise concepts, definitions will be mixed in your mind and you can't come up with a result. The most important three terms I will be using today is atheism, Maltheism, Xenotheism. Atheism, denying the existence of God. Maltheism, to believe that this God is bad or evil. Xenotheism, to hold the hatred against this God. Okay? This is the most important three terminology. Now this is section number 1. Section number 2. Every few minutes I will just stop for a few seconds just to make sure that everyone is still able to hear me and to listen me. Brother Maqsood, everything is okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much. Just to make sure.
The internet connection, yours went off for a few seconds in the middle.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. It's good to just to keep checking, inshallah. Alhamdulillah. You can't rely on this technology. We do our best.
Yes, go ahead, Sheikh.
Okay,
no problem.
So we have finished the first section, which is definitions. Now, second section is the history. The history, if I want to take the real time, I need at least 3 to 5 hours. So I will do my best in about 12 to 15 minutes to give you quick idea the historical development of the idea of atheism, and you all know what do I mean by atheism now. Now, historically speaking, to the best of my knowledge, my readings as an expert in comparative religions, humanity from the beginning through thousands of years, the vast majority of humans, they were believers in God or a God or gods, and they used to have a religion. It's by their inner nature, human beings are religious. They need the existence of God. They believe in the existence of God. However, they made some kind of corruptions. They started believing in different gods, or a false God, or the true God. However, the phenomena of atheism, which is the denial, the full rejection for the existence of God, has been seen and heard about with a very little, and I mean literal little, minorities during the history. Now, the most well-known records in the human history that we know about, old ancient civilizations, the Pharaohic, the Greek, the Romans. Now, three of them, great that we have some kind of manuscript, we have some knowledge, we have some historical recordings. All of them, they were polytheists. Now, none of them declared atheism. The people of, of Egypt, the Pharaoh, the Pharaohic, chains of kings for thousands of years, they used to believe in different gods. I'm not discussing now false, right, good, bad God. They used to believe, they were religious and they believed in the existence of God. However, they had some kind of corruptions. They believed in a false God. They were polytheists most of the time. But when you read the history, hardly you can find, for example, hundreds of years in the time of ancient Egypt or Greek, you will find 1, 2 philosophers out of hundreds, they were denying God's existence in the definition that we use now for atheists. This is the old ancient history. Now, maybe one of the most important well-known records to know about the new atheism, because there is a classical atheism and there is a new atheism. New atheism, it's a new terminology that started to be used after the event of September 11th in 2001. Before that, they used to call atheism now a new atheism. I will tell you later why. However, to understand how atheism became to be what we know now, we need to understand very quickly the following quick 500 years. Now, basically, without understanding the history of the church in Europe, no one will be able to understand anything about atheism. Because the larger context which atheism that influences the world now has came as a baby out of the womb of a European context, has to do with Europeans, has to do with the religion of Europeans that time, which happened to be Christianity, and it was dominant by the church. However, now one of the things we need to understand how atheism came to be, you need just one point, historical benchmark, one of them, which is the relation between Catholicism and Protestantism. The Protestant movement came as rejection for a lot of, as they believe, corruption in the Catholic Church 500 years ago. This conflict between two religious groups that they belong to one religion was one of the things that made a group of people reject the whole idea of religion. Let's jump 200 years from early 16th century to the end of 17th century. What happened? Please fix this in your mind. French Revolution from 1789 to 1798. French Revolution, it was the revolution by French people against two institutions. Institution number one, the monarchy system. The kings, the feudal lords of Europe, and the institution of the church. Now, European church with the feudal lords, monarchy system, for most of the time, they had some kind of coalition, they had some kind of unity, union, and somehow they were cooperating. You know, in the opposite side, the mass, you know, lay people, farmers, slaves. So at a certain point, people, they rejected these two institutions. They came up as a result of French Revolution with the very well-known terminology that we all now know as secularism. Now, secularism basically is a Latin terminology. It has two definitions or two practical applications. It's a huge terminology, but to make it short. Now, secularism means to detach, to separate religion, i.e. Christianity, i.e. church, from the state. Some very tough secular people, they interpret it as to separate religion from life. We don't care anymore with religion. We had both groups during the last, I'm talking about 1798. Up to today, we are talking about 222 years. Can you imagine? 22 decades. So Europeans, then North Americans, under the influence of what came out as a result of a French Revolution. French Revolution, they were against the institution of religion and the institutions of monarchy. Now, look, they were against the religion. It happened, the religion, that was the church. But however, the phenomenon now, numbers of people who were rejecting the religion, they were, you know, increasing. Let's jump now to the First World War. From 1914 to 1917. 1914, 1917, it was one of the biggest turning point in the history of humanity from Adam alayhi salam. You know why? Because by the end of the Second World War, 1917, something came up as the Bolshevik Revolution, which came up with what we used to know as the USSR, United Soviet Social Republic, or now we call them Russia. At that time, USSR, United Soviet Social Republic. For the first time in history, the concept of atheism, which is the full denial for the existence of God, which used to be with minorities, with some philosophers, with some thinkers, with whatever. For the first time in the history, now the concept of atheism came under a new terminology, which is communism. Communism, basically, it's a political, intellectual term, depends on the idea of atheism. So now the concept of atheism through communism and Marxism started to have the power of a state that protects and encourages it. Few years later, this happened, the concept of communism, which is built on the idea of rejection completely for the existence of God, happened in China. China, especially at the time of Mao Zedong. Now, Russians or United Soviet Social Republic and the Chinese people, for the first time in the history, we used to have the power of two giant states. They are built on the concept of atheism. Now, this point helped amazingly the rising, highlighting the pushing of this ideology. It used to be historically minorities, groups, maybe they are more or less, but no power of a state, no, military power to protect this. So starting from Protestantism 500 years ago, secularism, French Revolution 200 years ago, Bolshevik revolution after First World War, which influenced a lot, and then Russians and the Chinese going through. Now let's go back few decades. The idea of generally the concept of secularism, which started 200 years ago, it started to be more and more and more dependable on the concept of materialism and individualism. Materialism, which means the idea of spirituality every year is going down, down, down. The spirit is losing its share. The body, the physics, the physical power, it gains more. So we became, as a human being, after the influence of Europeans and the West in general, the media, the power, generally speaking, on worldwide, because we have to admit, the biggest influence on the media, in the manufacturing, in the technology comes from the West on all over the world. So the West in general became more keen to, more close to materialism, which is as a result of secularism. So and became more individualistic, which means the core point is me, my needs, my thoughts, my feelings. So the centric point became me and my physical needs. I'm not saying 100%, but gradually become more. Now, after September 11th, what happened with the Twin Towers, and unfortunately the biased media, which accused all Muslims of that. We all know that all religions, all sects, all groups, they have bad people. No one is generalizing against, but however, for political reason, it was generalized against Islam, not some bad Muslims. We started a new era. In addition to all of the reasons that I said, put now point, the attack, the exposure against Islam started to be much more powerful. In addition to this happened in parallel with rising up the power of media plus social media. Social media means we used to listen to some very limited TV channels, then limited satellite TV channels, then unlimited of anyone on earth can say whatever he wants. So materialistic power, more closeness to individualism, more closeness to secular materialistic way of thinking, a bad image through the media against Islam and Muslims, unfortunately by false generalizing. All of these reasons all together helped strongly the spread of the concept of atheism all over the world, but from those groups who were much more influenced, Muslims, whether Arabs or non-Arabs. This is a very, very short, quick, intensive idea if you want just to understand what is what, who is who with regard of the historical development of atheism. So by this, we have covered two sections, definitions and the quick historical review. Now I will jump to the third section. Third section, basically, I will be depending, and I urge you, if you want to expand your knowledge about this, I will be talking about the possible reasons for specific studied reasons for the spread of atheism between Muslims, Arabs or non-Arabs. Now I will be quoting two academic intensive works, one of them by Dr. Hisham Azmi and one of them by the Sheikh or by the engineer Sheikh Fadl Sulaiman. Fadl Sulaiman, if you go to the internet and you write Bridges Foundation or Fadl Sulaiman, he is one of the most well-known people who are dealing with the concept of atheism in his foundation, which is based in London. He's from Egyptian origins, used to live in the United States. Now he lives in London and he has a Bridges Foundation. Bridges Foundation. It's a special Da'wah foundation which helps to bridge the gaps between Muslims and non-Muslims, Islam and other religions. He is interested and he made like a very intensive survey with 2 different Islamic centers, one of them in the United States, the other one I forget, I think it's in Australia. They made like a intensive research about the reasons of why some Muslims became atheists. So I will be giving like a brief about his part of his results. Now, part of what he says, which is Fadl Sulaiman, Bridges Foundation, he says the general idea of the main reasons which many Arabs and Muslims they became atheists basically is the hate of the religion or having doubts against religion or refusing the religion for many different reasons. It's not the rejection of God's existence. It's either they have doubts about some certain things in the religion out of ignorance or no one is explaining. Or they started to hate religion because the teacher or the father or the mother, they were very tough with them when they were asking them to pray, for example. Or they rejected the religion, not the existence of God, because the practical application of the religion in their context, in their country, it was presented in a very tough, ugly way. Most of those who are labeled as atheists, they were pushed to this area because of such reasons. Now, he says that the starting point starts for many people who believe to be atheists within the Islamic, let's say, area. It is believed that they started from either the area of Maltheism or Xenotheism, not atheism. Maltheism, now they start to think that God is evil because of the misunderstanding. For example, they have a question. Why do we have children with cancer? Why God accept this? No one replies. No one gives answer. Maybe the sheikh at the halaqah, if he asks this, he will maybe say very bad words. You just shut up your mouth. Don't ask this question. So he will have a bad impression. He will have this kind of bad thoughts about God and no one answers. This will keep growing with him. When he becomes adult, he decides to declare that this God is such and such. Or Mesotheism. He faced a problem in his life. Maybe he, for example, was disabled for something. He's not able to do something. Maybe he was, someone was bullying him. And no one took care of him. His parents, they were busy. For whatever, many reasons. So maybe he started to ask his God, help me or something. For whatever reason, with his simple understanding, this did not happen. For example, he will start developing an attitude of hatred or rejection for this God. Not his existence, no. Have a bad feelings towards him. So, Dr. or Sheikh Fadl Sulaiman, through 3 Islamic centers in 3 continents, doing a research of tens if not hundreds of cases of readings and practical real cases came to their centers, they discovered that the majority, this is where they start to get into the area of atheism. So now he reviewed this and he put it under the following. He said the root causes for atheism, according to him, from an academic point of view, basically it was classified into 3 main areas. The area of personal trauma, صدمات الشخصية. The area of philosophical issues, إشكاليات فلسفية. The area of shortcomings in upbringing children, التقصير في التربية. So, in general, there are 33 reasons under the 3 main categories. Category number 1 is personal trauma. We will explain some examples. Something personal happened with him. Or philosophical issues, not something with him, but he's observing, watching, seeing, but why this does not happen, how come, where's, what if. This is philosophical, intellectual things. It's either the category of personal suffering, trauma, or philosophical, intellectual issues about himself or others, or it's because of the parenting shortcomings in upbringing the children, how they planted the seeds of spoil kid, for example, and how this affected him to be at a certain point Maltheist or Xenotheist, and he was labeled as atheist. Okay, now I will give an example or some examples of the personal trauma. Sheikh, forget the name, Sheikh Sadiq, are you still able to hear me very well? Everything is okay?
Yes, I think it's okay so far. No one complained yet. So
okay, tamam. So, personal trauma, first category. For example, the loss of the father. You will be amazed to know that reason number one of why atheists become atheists, it's the loss of the father. And it has two types. Type number one, to lose the father by his death. He leaves this worldly life and became an orphan. And the feeling of this child that the biggest hero in his life, the shield, the protection disappeared. So he will develop, if no one is taking care, no one is trying to explain, he was left somehow for his own thinking, he might develop an idea of becoming angry from God, then he ends up denying God's existence. This is one of the reasons according to research. Now, one of the reasons, losing a very close dear person to the person, like the mother now as well. Some people, or that's why it tells us how important it is to take care of the orphans. Because orphans, they are very vulnerable now. They lost the most important, close, or the biggest hero of protection in their life. If we do not compensate, if we do not fill the gap, we could be leading them to a very difficult future. Now, one of the reasons that leads to atheism in the Muslim society, the spousal abuse. Can you imagine that? Now, they received cases, especially from women, when they discovered that their men, when they were living under a very bad behavior of their spouse, especially the men, they were hitting them or doing whatever with them, and this man was representing religion for them. He was speaking on behalf of religion. He was misusing religion against her. She did not hate the husband. She did not reject the husband. She jumped immediately to what she thought that gave him the power to do this against her. She rejected God. She was called atheist. After investigation, she is either Maltheist or Xenotheist. She thinks that God, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, is evil, or she hates God. She's not an atheist, but she's labeled as an atheist. This is by his research. Now, one of the reasons that they discover, for example, the bad conduct, the bad behavior from some religious leaders such as imams. It happens sometimes, unfortunately. Maybe 1 out of 1%, but it happens. If the imam, the one who memorized the Quran, the one who leads the prayer, was in some occasions very tough with a kid, a child, he made a mistake in the masjid, he did something, whatever, and he was very harsh, or very tough, or very rude, or very despicable with him, for whatever reason, the end result for the implication on the feelings and the way of thinking of this kid could be developed to the concept, and he will be labeled as atheist, even though he's Maltheist or Xenotheist, because the same thing. I'm giving you just examples about the first category, which is personal trauma. Now, second category, philosophical or intellectual issues, such as, طبعا, on top of these things, the problem of evil. This is, by the way, historically, classically, philosophically, intellectually, and in New Atheism, the biggest reason that causes atheism for many, unfortunately, people, Muslims and non-Muslims, Arabs and non-Arabs. It's called the problem of evil. The problem of evil, basically, in a very brief way, if God does exist, how come he is accepting the existence of evil? If God does exist, how come he accepts this group of people, this country, this state? They made war, they killed, they raped, they kidnapped, they etc. Sorry. If God does exist, why he is allowing suffering with children? Why children have some of them, they are having cancer? For example, why? They highlight such things which is categorized under the problem of evil, and they say, if God does exist, he should be able to remove this evil. The fact that evil is there, it means by default God does not exist. This is the philosophy of how they think. طبعا, there is an amazing, beautiful, refute and answer for that, but I will deal with it when I come to some examples how to deal with the big question of atheism. But I'm giving you an idea about the philosophical, intellectual reasons of why some people, they become atheists. Now, one of the philosophical things, sometimes the very tough literal way of applying the religion. For example, the concept, let me explain to you. We have some religious Muslim groups, they are very literal, they are very tough in understanding the text in a very literal way, which leads them to understand this concept. We go to the concept of fundamentalism. By the way, many people, they think this is an Islamic terminology or something has to do with Muslims. Actually, it's an American Christian terminology. By the beginning of the establishment of the United States more than 250 years ago, some Christian groups, they were believing in the concept of, they were against any kind of new development or against any type of advancement or new technology. So when they started the revolution, the industrial revolution, they were refusing using trains. They were refusing using, steam cars. They were refusing later on using electricity. They started refusing using cars, electricity, radio, and such things. Now, when their way of thinking, they said Jesus Christ in his time did not use these things. We should go to the fundamentals of our religion. Has Jesus Christ used these things or not? If not, we should not be using them. So those opponents to them in the American society who rejected their way of thinking, they called them the fundamentalists. Fundamentalists, historically, it's those people who decided to go back to stick with fundamentals. So it was a neutral term. Now they were portrayed as a very, very negative, literal group. People started, making fun of them and looking at them down, and the terminology fundamentalist it has a very negative connotation. Which when you say he's a fundamentalist, he is the person who is stuck with the old way of understanding. He refuses to develop or to understand the spirit of the context. The fact that Jesus Christ did not, for example, use electricity because simply electricity did not exist in his time. If electricity was there, he would have used it. And you know this debate. This happened more than 200 years ago. And you know, more than 200, 150, 120, it became a very, very bad connotation and annotation for an indication for the word fundamentalism or fundamentalists. Okay? Now, this terminology, now we have in Islam, and not Islam by the way, fundamentalism, it is a phenomena that exists in all of religions. You go to Judaism, Christianity and Islam, you will find the groups of people, they will stick to the very literal way of understanding. We have a group of Muslims, they say, for example, this is unacceptable, this is innovation, bid'ah. Why? Prophet Muhammad did not use such and such. We say, yes, in terms of ritual worship, you are right. But in the practical, technical things, it has nothing to do. So we had this group of people in Islam, okay, which is similar to fundamentalism in the historical Christianity about 200 years ago. Now, some groups of people who uses with, if they are controlling an area or a masjid or whatever, and they keep telling the people that this is not allowed, this is haram, this is because it was not such and such. This way, this mentality of thinking pushed some people, if that unfortunately was the only way whom they were able to understand Islam through, they did not reject this group and they did not reject this version of bad understanding of Islam. They rejected God himself because they thought this is what God wants from us. They said, no. This is, wal-'iyadu billah, an evil God. This is a bad God. This is, how come? How come they rejected? They started developing the idea of rejecting God or hating God or neglecting God or denying the existence of God. I'm giving you according to the 33 reasons of the main reasons of behind the roots of why do we have atheists in our Islamic and Arabic, society. Just one example, by the way, out of 10. Now the third category, just to be able to control the time. Now, third category, which is the shortcomings of upbringing children. And if you want to expand your knowledge, go Google to Fadil Sulaiman, Bridges Foundations, listen to his tens of episodes about atheism in English and in Arabic. If you want to have extra deep about atheism, read about Haytham Talat, both Arabic and English on YouTube and in their websites. Now we come back to the third category of the main big reasons behind the existence of atheism within Muslim youth and Arab youth in general. It is the shortcomings in raising children. You will be amazed to know that from the main reasons is the spoiled child, الطفل المدلل, and he said الطفل المعصوم. الطفل المعصوم is the infallible child. What's infallible child? He says they discovered through the research and the study that the parents who used to deal with the child as ma'soom. Ma'soom means infallible. It is the child who does not make mistakes. What does this mean? I need to explain it. In Arabic society especially, many parents, when they have a new kid, especially males, boys, they start dealing with them in a very, very emotional way, which is good from one aspect, but it has a side effects. For example, this newborn child starting, let's say, to crawl. He hit something, then he caused, something was broken. Or while he was crawling, he hit the edge of the table. He's starting, for example, crying. they immediately, in our culture, just to make it fun, we starting hitting the table, for example, by saying, for example, the day table, the day table. Why you did do such and such for example, my son? Okay, he was crawling or trying to walk, he caused, for example, he broke the vase, for example, or he broke something. Will you say, the day something, for example, Tom and Jerry, they broke the table, or such and such, our neighbor did it, the bull did it, or whatever. So he will be raised on the notion that he does not make mistakes. He's not responsible for anything. No one told him, be careful, Habibi, this is wrong, be careful, don't come, no, don't touch, no, this is wrong, you are not allowed, okay. Even if he cried, to tell him that this is right and wrong. Don't touch this, because you could be breaking it. He understands. Even if he's crawling, we say, no, my beloved, this is wrong. So he was raised in a way that whatever happens, he's not responsible. So when this takes him years, anything happens and he cries and we blame something else. When he became mature, now he's an adult, he's facing real life crisis, such as he failed in the exam. He did not achieve the scholarship. He lost something he was wishing to have. Whatever. Okay, who to be blamed now? All the time they raised him up to blame something else. Now the cartoon hero is blamed. The ball is blamed. The table is blamed. The leg of the table is blamed. But he is not blamed. He is not responsible. He does not make mistakes. When he faces something serious, such as failure in the exam or something, he starts searching of someone to blame. Who's responsible for this? Because I'm not responsible. Okay? Unfortunately, it happens that he starts blames God. He is the one who's responsible. Yes, God did this for me. He will start developing an attitude of hatred, rejection, and accusing of it, because it's you. Yes, it's not me. Why you did this? Answer me. So he moves into area of Maltheism and Xenotheism. It started with planting the seeds of my son is fallible. He does not make mistakes. I do not tell him not even once that this is right, this is wrong. Even when he hits something and he feels bad, when he cries, I could sometimes leave him to cry for a while to realize that he's doing something wrong. No. When I decide just to spoil him, I might be planting the seeds of atheism in his, inside himself. This is one out of about 10 reasons. I'm giving you just very, very quick ideas. Now, this is section number 3. Now, I will move to the last section, which is how to deal with 1 or 2 doubts in this huge, and I have to remind you again. What I'm talking about, basically, I need the average of 24 hours to highlight. And if I want really to be comfortable in conveying the message for my audience or my students in training courses, I need 36 hours to deal with every single point of this, the causes, the reasons, the healings, how to do it. It takes time. And how to solve these problems. I need to lay the foundation of the knowledge, understanding the text, the context, the logic, the philosophy, all of these things. But however, now by this, I have finished 3 main sections: definitions, quick brief history, then the main possible reasons that push people and youth in specific into the area of atheism. Now, let's come to how to deal with these doubts. I will apply this on one example and then I will stop, inshallah. This example is the problem of evil, which is the biggest problem historically, classically, and in new atheism. Most of atheists, whether they are real, genuine atheists, what do I mean by real, genuine atheists? Who deny the existence of God, or if they are labeled as atheists, even though they are Maltheists or Xenotheists, which means they believe that God is bad or evil, or they developed an attitude of hatred to God. It's whether atheist, Maltheist, or Xenotheist in general. I mean, all of them, they have a serious problem about the idea of evil. If God does exist, how come he accepts the existence of evil? إذا كان الله موجودا فكيف يقبل بالشر? Look how we can be dealing with this concepts. First point, look how naive, simple, superficial they are. When you think logically, there is no relation and no contradiction by default between the existence of God and the existence of evil. Actually, the serious problem should be, I'm telling you how weak their way of thinking. Now, if God does exist, which we believe that God does exist, those poor people, they looked at some of his attributes and names. You know, we believe in 99 names and attributes of God. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Rahim, merciful. We believe that he is subhanahu wa ta'ala Qadir, the Almighty, the All-Powerful. So they look at two attributes of him and they deny and they forget, they close their eyes that Allah is not just Rahim and Qadir. He is also Alim and Hakim. Allah is Alim, the all-knowing, and Hakim, the all-wise, which means when you want to judge God's action in the universe, don't look to one of his attributes. Attributes. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rahim, yes, but he is Hakim as well, which is wise, the all-wise. What kind of wisdom could be behind this? Okay, he is Qadir. We know that he is Qadir. He is Almighty. He can do it. But he is Alim. He knows what you don't know and I don't know. Because if he is wise and Alim, he has a purpose for what's happening. So therefore, the first refutes the existence of the problem of evil has to do with God's attributes, but it has nothing to do with God's existence, because it's possible that this God does exist, but simply he is allowing this evil to happen. Why? For a wisdom that you don't realize, and because he knows what you don't know. So your genuine question should be, if God is... Sorry, the question should be, we should not be discussing the existence of God as long as we believe in God. Is God merciful? Yes. Is God able to do it? Yes. But let's add to your knowledge. Allah is wise, Hakim, and Alim, the all-knowing. So by this, try to seek the knowledge. What wisdom could be behind such and such a problem? By this, we are correcting the question from the very beginning. This is first step. Type, let's come. Okay, we agree with you. I'm speaking on behalf of some atheists now. I'm using what they call in English the devil's advocate. Okay, let's imagine that we will accept that this God does exist and this God is merciful and Almighty, and he has some kind of wisdom because of his knowledge. He's an ultimate knowledge. He's the creator. Tell me what could be part of his wisdom depending on his ultimate knowledge. Here comes, we start the right approach how to deal with this question. Here comes, we say, look, in Islam means submission. Submission means taslim. Okay, submission, taslim. You submit yourself to the will of Lord. Part of your submission to submit to his will when he decides to do something or decides to ask you to do something. Which means, now, I'm not supposed to be questioning in a way of arrogance, but I have the right to question for the sake of seeking the knowledge. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he asked, قال رب أرني كيف تحيي الموتى. He was asking, not on the base of the attitude of arrogance, no, on the attitude of seeking the knowledge. Ya Allah, I would love to know how you bring back dead people to life. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replied him. He gave him some certain steps, even though after that he could not realize, but did not say him why you ask this question. So it depends on your attitude. Now, how can we solve this problem? We go back to the knowledge of Islam, such as, do you have an idea about the concept of ibtila wal bala in Islam? You have an idea that Allah says الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا? Do you know that God is saying clearly that I've created you to put you into test and trial? The main reason of our existence is وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Verily indeed I've not created the jinn and the human being but to worship me. Worship means to obey, unconditionally every single aspect in our life. This life is based on the concept of trial and test. الذي خلق الموت, he created life and death to put you into trial and to test you. Then he added to us وَنَبْلُوكُمْ بِالشَّرِّ وَالْخَيْرِ فِتْنَةً, and we will put you into trials and test in what appears to be evil from your point of view, and what appears and seems to be good from your point of view. Then Allah adds in another verse, وَعَسَى أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ وَعَسَى أَن تُحِبُّوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ شَرٌ لَكُمْ. You might hate something even though it contains goodness and khair for you, and you might love something and don't know that it contains all kind of evil for you. وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Allah knows while you don't know. When we put the concept of ibadah, worship, full submission, the concept of ibtila, ikhtibar, test, trial, the concept of that this test will be in what appears to be evil and good, and what appears to be is not necessarily it is as such, and then we might be thinking of something that it's on the contrary and we don't know. When we believe that this is the plan of God and this is the system of God, and I believe that this worldly life is a test hole and it's a part of a very long story, will continue after death through the what we call alam al-barzakh, the barrier. Then I believe in the resurrection and congregation, al-ba'th wa nushur, then the accountability, then they have final destination to the paradise either or to the hellfire, wal-'iyadhu billah, and the fulfillment of the promise will be there. When I look to the worldly life as a part just of a test, understanding this long chain of God's wisdom and knowledge and the plan and design. So where is the problem? It's exactly like I'm sitting to the test now. For example, English tests, TOEFL, IELTS. They will tell me you are not allowed to leave the test to go to the washroom. You are not allowed to speak with anyone. You are not allowed to do blah blah. You are not allowed to eat, to drink. You are not allowed to have your mobile phones. You are now okay, this is a test. Now, am I suffering by the fact that I'm just sitting for 3 hours in a place? Yes, but I know that it is a test. If I succeeded, I might be the CEO of the company. I might be the general manager of such and such. So I'm promised of something. I'm in the test. Do I love the fact that they took my mobile from me for 3 hours? No, I would love to keep checking my social media, whatever. They took it from me. Am I happy by the fact that I'm not drinking coffee while I'm in the test? Yes, I hate not drinking coffee. I would love to keep drinking. In the test, I'm not allowed. Do we do this? It is a test. So, but this test is a part of a full system. You go study, you sit for the test. You will not like some certain things, but you are aware that this happened for you, but for a purpose. This purpose, why we don't give you your mobile? Okay, but I will not cheat. You will not cheat, but someone else could cheat. So therefore, the law, no mobiles. Why not to have any kind of your personal headset? You might cheating. We will not allow anyone to break the law. Why I'm not allowed to go to the washroom, blah, 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 except after, because there is a possibility you might break the law. Why you are not allowed to bring your own pencils or pens? For the same reason. Why you are not allowed to use any kind of liquids or drinks? You might hurt the keyboards by, dropping, for example, the liquid on your keyboard. So there's justifications. If someone decided to ignore all of the philosophy and he starts saying, those idiots people, they just sit us inside this hole for the reason of making our life miserable. I hate the people who make the test of blah, 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 blah. He's just a simple, childish attitude. He does not understand anything in his life. We sit for exams. We sit for exams to finish the high school. We sit for exams to finish our BA degree. We sit for exams and we study and we go to very restricted times for our MA thesis. Then we do the same thing for our PhDs. Wherever we go, we sit for exam. The interview is interview. It's an exam. Am I allowed to eat and drink while I'm interviewing the CEOs of 5 companies to be employed? No. Am I allowed to be late? No. Am I allowed to wear anything? No, 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 no. Are these restrictions? Yes. Do I love them? No. Why do I them? For the sake of something behind it. So understand it in this context. This is just simple example I'm giving you. How to deal with the problem of evil. What seems might to be evil is not such. Final example on this philosophy, this concept, is the following example. Look, to explain the concept of wisdom, God's wisdom. Imagine that you are a father of a young, sorry, imagine that you are going to the hospital with your young child who's, let's say, 5 years old. The first time in his life, your kid is accompanying you into the hospital. You wanted to visit a relative of yours. By mistake, you went through a wrong corridor in the hospital. You came across immediately. You found yourself with a separated, glass, big, window. There was the theater where they do the surgery, and there was like an open heart surgery. It is separated by a huge piece of glass, but however, you were there. It's the first time for your kid in a hospital, the first time in his life that he's witnessing a surgery, life surgery. What he witnessed, he's a very simple, naive, nice kid. Let's imagine he does not watch TV. He has no idea about, operational surgery. He has no idea. He saw a person, which is the professional professor, the surgeon. He was holding a knife, opening, let's say, part of the body of a person who was laid there. He was bleeding some blood, and this person is taking something from inside, and there was a blood and many people and a knife and something. He started screaming, crying, "Daddy, this is the criminal. He's a killer. Look, he's opening his heart with a knife. This is a criminal. Call the police." You will laugh because your kid does not understand the wisdom and he has no knowledge. He does not know that the one who is sleeping went there willingly, and he paid tens of thousands of dollars for the person who's holding the knife to open, to take out something, maybe the tumor, maybe the problem, maybe to open the valves of his heart, whatever. And after that, he will be, kissing his hand of being thankful for this fact. Now, superficially, for the limited knowledge and the loss of wisdom of your kid, he will be judging the doctor who's doing the surgery as a criminal, as a bad guy, as a killer. In reality, your kid knows nothing, and he is judging completely on the basis of a mistake. The reality, this is a well professional. He deserves tens of thousands. He's a high-class person. He's a very clever person. He has the nice attitude to save someone's life. He's taking out a tumor. It's very complicated. Even if you said, no, he's doing an operation. What is operation? He's removing the tumor. What's tumor? He does not know. So he's lacking the knowledge. Knowledge, wisdom, they don't exist. So therefore his judgment is completely based on fake things. This is exactly the one of us who will judge God. If you don't have the knowledge, you don't know the wisdom, which is the case. Sometimes you have no knowledge and you don't know the wisdom and you don't care. Just you judge God depending on just the superficial attitude. I will give you a simple example. I will finish. Steve Jobs, for example, he passed away a few years ago. Steve Jobs, one of the most well-known genius people in the history of humanity. The Apple, the computer, the icons, the iPad, the iPhones, all of them, it's his. Okay, when you look to his childhood, the difficulties he passed through, it's amazing. You will cry. You say, wow, he was thrown, he's struck by another family, then he suffered, then many things happened for him. Now, who knows that this very difficult hardship, they were the main reason for his innovations, for his power. Otherwise, if he was spoiled with a very nice, good, rich, parents, maybe he will not have invented anything from what he done. For example, sometimes you don't know. We have no idea. Some people, they were rich people, arrogant people. They have kids. In a car accident, they lost their kids. Now, once they lost their kids, they discovered that their money does not able to bring their kids again. They became humble to their Lord. They realized that money is not everything. They changed their attitude. Instead of making money just for the sake of making money or oppressing the people, they redirected their money for orphans, people in need, cancer. They became from the best well-known people after the loss of their kids in a car accident. It happens. Many possibles, many incidents, etc. Anyway, and I would love, if it's possible, not to answer any question because you can't imagine how tired I am. By the way, since nearly the Fajr up to this point, I'm nearly just engaged in different occasions. This is the third or fourth one. So I hope that I have done the best of four main sections. Section number 1, the definitions of atheism, monotheism, polytheism, maltheism, and mesotheism, and agnosticism. Then we had a quick idea about the history, then about the main reasons of atheism, then how to deal with one example, which is the problem of evil. If we have some simple questions, quick short questions, I will deal with them. If very philosophical deep questions, really, I will apologize and finish. Jazakumullah khair. I have finished.
Yes, Sheikh. I think there's one question that someone wrote here about, the challenges the youth face nowadays is, they say majority of the Western or the thought here challenges the relevance of religion. Relevance, why is religion even important if I'm already a good person, I'm following the law, I'm doing everything? You think you want to answer that one?
It needs a good time, but I will give you just like a simple answer. Why, if I'm a good, if I'm a good person, why do I need a religion? To be honest with you, this is a very philosophical question. Who decides who's good and what is good and what is bad? Are you with me? When say, if I'm a good person, look what happens. The concept of good and goodness is relative. If there is no umbrella of that, the reference point is God, we human beings keep changing concepts depending on our desires. I will give you a simple idea. Many things used to be criminalized 50 years ago in the West. Now, if you criticize them, you are a criminal. Who's right, who's wrong? Who decides? We human beings. Now, for example, human beings, if they have power, definitely they will be spoiled. So they change whatever they would like to change. Okay, like for example, I will give you example in politics to avoid any sensitive thing. In politics, for example. Now, when George Bush the son, the second, started fighting terrorism after September 11th, they started to attack, to fight terrorism, but they did not give a definition for terrorism. Now, all Arabs and Muslims, they said, okay, we are with you. We will fight terrorism. By Allah, we are against terrorists, but give us the definition of terrorism because we need to know who, when, what we are fighting. Now, they refused to give a definition for terrorism. Therefore, they came up with a slogan, he who is with us is a freedom fighter. He who is against us is a terrorist. Which means, if I'm satisfied with you, you are a freedom fighter. But you are holding machine guns and killing others. No problem, because you are with us, you are a freedom fighter. Okay. But if we decided that you are our enemy for whatever reason, political agenda, immediately you are a terrorist. Okay. Are you a terrorist or a freedom fighter? Okay. Okay. It depends on who is holding the power and whether you are a friend or an enemy for him. Apply this on all different aspects. Is this when someone says, I'm doing good? Who decides what's good? Now, I will give you a simple example. Now, generally, do we all of us consider pedophilia as a big crime or not?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know that some European countries now, some Scandinavian countries, they are fighting some groups there to legitimize, unfortunately. They are fighting to consider by law that this is legal. What if they took the power? Is it possible?
Yeah.
Is it possible? It's possible. What if in 15 years from now, X country and, for example, Scandinavian countries, they took the power and they started ruling. So they made the law, it is allowed. Now we are saying it's a crime. If by law 2 Scandinavian countries decided to make pedophilia as part of the human rights. Okay, who's right, who's wrong? I'll give you a simple example. Type, in Christianity, in Judaism, in Islam, alcohol is prohibited. Many countries now, they say it's part of economic growth. Who's right, who's wrong? It's endless, brother. So those people, I know, they are speaking in a very nice attitude, but they don't realize this, the danger of the philosophy itself. Do I need religion as long as I'm doing good and bad? I'm giving him the good news now. I'm joking, طبعا. Who told you that you and your kids will be able to know what's good and what's bad? Everything could be changed in a few years. Everything. And you can't say no or yes because they are manipulating and playing whatever they would like to, regardless who are they. So therefore, when we say religion and we speak about our religion, Islam, no one can play a dirty game with Allah because the text is preserved. What is illegal is illegal. What is legal is legal. It's khalas. No one can play. We say, I think, I feel, you know, it appears from my point of view. No. Relativism has no right to play in this dirty game with me because relatively speaking, at any time I can change whatever I want and you can't do the same. Who's right, who's wrong? Imagine, is it possible logically, according to this question, in a few years, some people might come and say, okay, as long as I'm not doing something bad with the people, why should I respect my parents if they are bad with me? Why should I? Logically, can you find a justification for not respecting your parents? Definitely yes, you can. We respect them because even sometimes my parents might be bad. Okay, they are not angels. I'm restricted with the one who created me. وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدْ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. The one who created you and gave you your soul, your life, your spirit, your sight, your power is commanding you. Even if they were the worst people in your life, you have no right to insult them. If relativism, anyone can justify, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, even killing their parents because they were bad with them. So, endless attitude, very dangerous. It will lead to chaos, full destruction. So it's a wrong question. You got my point, brother?
Yes, I understand.
جزاكم الله خيرا. أنا really I feel very tired. By the way, I have another 2 commitments now.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah.
Wallahi.
Allah bless you and reward you.
This is
I
commitment
don't
number.
think this is the last session with us. We will have you again, inshallah.
Inshallah,
Yeah,
subhanallah. The plan was, and inshallah, يعني I feel that the plan was that to be with you physically, but by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of the coronavirus, inshallah, but inshallah, may Allah make it easy for us in the near future, inshallah, to meet all of your respected brothers and sisters, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan for having me, Jazakumullah khair for attending this Zoom session. Amazingly, as I was saying, Brother Maqsood, yesterday, when we used to recite the very well-known dua, اللهم اجعل هذا الجمع جمعا مرحوما واجعل التفرق بعده تفرقا معصوما. Oh Allah, give us blessings in our gatherings. We used to do it in the masjid. It did not come to my mind that once a day I will be doing this dua virtually. We have Jam' now, but we are maybe in different 3 cities on earth now. And by the way, I'm opening my Facebook page as well. I have 2 millions from 50 countries. But they are listening not in Zoom, into my Facebook page. So I'm saying maybe now about 5,000 people in 50 countries, they are listening. And we are making the dua of اللهم اجعل جمع هذا الجمع جمعا مرحوما. Ya Allah, who would expect that we will have a gathering virtually from all different aspects of earth. لا إله إلا الله. اللهم لك الحمد. جزاكم الله خير. بارك الله فيكم.
Thank you, Sheikh, and thank you everyone for joining. I know I saw some questions. We'll get them in another session. We'll do it internally. Thank you, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. جزاكم الله خير. بارك الله فيك. لا إله إلا الله. السلام عليكم. حياكم الله يا أخوة يا أخوات على الصفحة. أنا بعرف دعيتوا علي. كم واحد فيكم أنا ماجي بقول يحكي بالعربي يا جماعة. والله أنا بستغرب. جماعة بكون عم بعطي محاضرة باللغة الإنجليزية لمجموعة ما بيعرفوش عربي. فأنا ما بقدر أستوعب كيف واحد بضل يطلب مني ليش ما بتحكي بالعربي. طب هي محاضرة بالإنجليزية. طب أنا بحكي بالعربي شيء. على كل حال هذه محاضرة يا أخوة يا أخوات كانت حول موضوع الإلحاد، موجهة للشباب خاصة في مدينة اسمها فورت ماكميري، موجودة في أقصى تقريبا غرب كندا. بعيد أنا بكندا وهم بكندا، بس بيني وبينهم طيران حوالي 4 ساعات. كان يفترض أكون عندهم اليوم وأعطيهم محاضرة. بسبب الطيران والكوفيد 19 وإغلاق الكذا حولناها على الزوم زي ما أنتم شايفين. والمجموعة الغالبية فيهم بيعرفوش عربي أصلا، مشان هيك كانت محاضرة بالإنجليزي. فأعطيت فكرة مبسطة ومصغرة عن تعريف الإلحاد وتاريخ الإلحاد وأسباب الإلحاد، وأعطيت التعامل مع شبهة واحدة من شبه الإلحاد كيف بنعالجها. الله يجزيكم الخير ويبارك فيكم، يعطيكم ألف ألف عافية. إذا في إشي متعلق باللي كانوا فاهمين عليه، اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد. في أخوان بيقول لي خليك بالعربي أفضل. أخي هو مش قضية أفضل وما أفضل، يعني أنا بحكي بالعربي وبحكي بالإنجليزي. الإنجليزي اللي ما بفهموا عربي من المسلمين، المساكين ما بيعرفوا عربي، يعني مش معقول أضلني أحكي عربي لناس ما بفهموا عربي. يعني هدف من وجودي في كندا أصلا، أنا جاي على كندا أصلا ومستدعى على كندا ومعروض علي الوظيفة وماخذ الفيزا مشان آجي لأني بحكي لغتين أصلا. يعني طلبوني من آخر الدنيا وعملوا لي فيزا خاصة عدم المؤاخذة، وتم أخذ الفيزا بسبب أني أنا معي دكتوراه في مقارنة الأديان وبحكي اللغتين وبخاطب المسلمين العرب وغير العرب بالوقت واحد. فهذا الهدف من وجودي، فمنطق أني أنا عم بأدي جزء من دوري. فجزاكم الله خيرا، لأنه كثير بيضل الناس يسألوا ليش ما عم تحكي بالعربي. أنا معظم صفحتي بالعربي، لكن مرات بكون جزء من واجبي الأساسي اللي بسببه أنا موجود في كندا بكون عم بعطي المحاضرة. يعني مشان الصورة واضحة، اللي سمعني الآن واستوعب الفكرة يصير يساعدني لما أبث إشي بالإنجليزي، بيكون الهدف منه مجموعة معينة. لكن أنا زيادة في الخير بفتح صفحتي وأنا عارف إنه الغالبية من صفحتي عرب، بس بقول إلا في أكيد في ناس فيهم بيفهم إنجليزي، من باب عملية نشر الخير. هذا هو سببه. فيا ريت اللي استوعبوا الفكرة يصير يساعدوا، يعني يشرحوا للناس ليش أنا عم بحكي بالإنجليزي. في ناس بفكروني ساكن بالاردن، بيقولوا انت قاعد ببلد عربي. انا مش بالاردن، انا في كندا يا اخوه. انا موجود في كندا في اونتاريو، في ضواحي تورنتو. والهدف من وجودي جاي ادرس وحاضر بالدرجه الرئيسيه باللغه الانجليزيه. الله يجزيكم خير ويبارك فيكم ان شاء الله. طيب، جزاكم الله خير، الله يعطيكم الف عافيه. اسال الله سبحانه وتعالى يقول قد وفقت لتوضيح الفكره، لا تنسوا من دعائكم. السلام عليكم ورحمه الله وبركاته.